Our whole USA is in a messed up state. The nearly 300 million people have ideas that parted. Wait, the left became too cool. Conservatives all seem to drool. See, and we all just act like fools. We built a war. We killed the terrorists. Gays, jobs, economy, dead fetuses. Who's bombing me? It's all starting Alex Bennett program.
Bazinga.
Everybody, welcome. It is the Great American Broadcast. I'm here. Come on in, say hello. Nice to see you. It is a Friday, and have we got a show for you? Do we, Albert? Do we have a show for them?
I'm not really sure about that. It's possible.
Huh?
We certainly have elements for a show.
We have elements for a show. We have, well, let's see here. We have your prep sheet, right? Which, by the way, Albert, you put a lot of work in on this prep sheet.
I can't believe how much work I put into that.
Yeah,
and
you don't really...
so little gets done.
Huh?
So little of it gets done.
Well, yes, but there are gems in here.
Yeah.
Then you have to, you know, I never ever got through... Did I ever get through the whole prep sheet?
You never even got through one page of the prep sheet.
Oh, really? I get a lot of stuff from it now.
Yeah.
I really do. You have to admit that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then that's my work, see? That's the what do we call that? The death row?
Yeah, death row inmates.
Yeah, death row inmates. It's our clip list. So that's the magic of how we do the show. Someday we should like turn the cameras around and show people exactly what the studio looks like when we don't have all the magic here. You know.
Sooner than later we'll do that.
What?
Sooner than later we'll do that.
Sooner than later we'll do that. Just so we can show people what it's like, right?
Because they definitely want to see.
How the magic is done?
I know they're clamoring for it.
You know, we've actually, a lot of this is an illusion. Can we say that?
Yeah, a lot of media is an illusion.
Most media is illusion.
Yeah.
Like Brian Williams says he's a newscaster, right? It's all an illusion. And in our case, there's an illusion here that we've been doing for the longest time now. And I actually had somebody over at a network here, right? Knows television, right? Looked at it and said, great set.
Sets with an S.
Huh?
Sets
Great
with an
sets.
S.
We have another set. Can you show them the other set, Albert?
Yeah, let me see. Hold on one second.
You just press V2, right?
It's empty right now.
No, it's empty right now because I'm not over there, but that's our other set.
Right.
That's over in another studio. Most people don't realize that.
Right.
You want to see how fast I can go from one to the other? Go ahead. Go to the...
No.
No, go to the other set. Go to the other set. Oh, wow. Man, that was work, Albert.
Now, that bit got stale anyway.
Did I do that once before?
Oh, you've done it many times before.
No, I haven't done it.
But longer. You took a longer walk.
I took a long... Well, no, I did the thing where I went through the toilet and so on. Okay, just to stay on this shot for a second, I'll go back to the other set. There we are. Interesting, isn't it? That way. Yeah, I guess it was right? Okay. Anyway, that's the magic of that's our magic of television. And then, of course, we have the whole studio set. You know, it's a big, giant set. Why we only use this much of it, I have no idea. After we went to all that expense of building the whole set, which, by the way, Albert cobbled together in one evening with his craftsman tools and helpful hints from Bob Vila. So that's... Hey, say hello to everybody, Albert, so they can see you. See your ugly face. There
Hello to everybody.
That's Albert Reynoso. He is our producer of this program.
Yes.
I noticed you cleaned up the back, Albert.
Not really. There's a phony background right back there. That's what that is.
To cover the wall and everything. Yeah. We still have the door.
My shirt that looks like I'm a 10-year-old.
I was going to say, when I came in, I was going to say something, and then I figured he might be insulted if I said it makes you look like Charlie Brown.
Yeah, it's like a little kid's shirt.
It's a little kid's shirt.
That's what my wife's daughter says.
Yeah.
Why do you wear that little kid's shirt? Well, because it was only $3.99, that's why.
Now, why does that have to be a little kid's shirt?
I don't know.
I would wear that.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, it's hipster, and I'm a hipster.
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, see, but we can't close the door. You know why?
Why?
Because there's a big, ugly cabinet back
Oh, we
there.
can close the door.
Because somebody in there can close the door? Here we go. That looks ugly, see? Now that looks ugly.
Well, it's videotapes. It's video. This is the TV studio, so why not? It's fine. Works
Ink.
fine.
Ink.
Yeah.
Studio Ink.
TV Studio Inc.
Ink.
Yes.
If anybody wants to use a good studio, by the way, this is a good studio.
It's a very good studio, yeah.
Look at the quality we get out of it.
I'm on one side, you're on the other side.
Why are you bigger than I am?
Yes.
No, it's always
answer
that
to
way.
that is yes.
The host is always smaller than the guest.
Yeah.
In these two shots. So I thought we'd just mention that. Anyway, welcome to our fine little program. You know, I got to tell you, it's an embarrassment of riches. I, for the longest time, have belonged to AFTRA, which is a union for broadcasters, right? You belong to AFTRA as well, right, Albert?
Suspended membership.
Wait a minute, hold on a second.
I thought you'd like that.
Huh?
I thought you'd like that.
Well, it warms up the studio.
Yeah.
And girlfriend likes that, by the way. She says it makes the whole thing seem cozy, the show.
Everybody loves a fire, especially at this time of the
Yeah.
year.
And it's funny, it's on a screen, but it still looks like it's a fireplace.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Anyway, so you belong to AFTRA, right?
Suspended membership.
You're a
yes.
suspended member, so you don't get what we people who still become. I still maintain my membership for two reasons. You want to know the two reasons? Number one,
Enlighten me.
I believe in my union, right? And so I like the idea of being a union member. My father was a union member of the Musicians Union. And so I was very proud the day I got a union card. And I've been a member of AFTRA now for God knows how many years. And even though I at times, and most times, worked at stations like Sirius that aren't union outfits, I've kept my membership over the years. And now, you know the second reason why I keep my membership?
Free movies.
No, free membership.
No, free membership.
When you reach a certain age, they don't charge you for your membership.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll have to remember that in 30 years.
Age has its privileges. What do you mean 38 years?
I'm kidding.
You're only 24 years, 22 years away from me?
El Viejo.
El Viejo. What? You got a little Spanish blood in you, and that's the only Spanish you know is something that can insult me.
I'm old shaming you.
You're old shaming me. Anyway, no, but the other advantage is that we just merged with a SAG, which is strippers with old breasts. No, it's actually the Screen Actors Guild. And so for some reason, we now get to vote in the SAG Awards, which they have every year. And when you have the SAG Awards, you have any awards, Academy Awards, Golden Globes, the studios send out what they call screeners of all the films that are nominated. Now, they have two ways of doing them. They either send you a screener, or if they give you a special code, you go to iTunes and you can download the movie and watch it. So yesterday, I get this mailing, and I got like 5 movies to watch. 12 Years a Slave, let's see, there was that one. August Osage County, that one. The Butler, which I don't care about The Butler. But anyway.
Is that the one where the girl gives a poop-laden pie to the house owner?
No, that's the Maid, that Maid movie a few years ago.
Well, see, that's why I got him confused.
This is The Butler. This is the one with Oprah Winfrey.
Does she give anybody anything with poop in it?
That. Have you ever seen her show?
Ooh, good one.
Ooh. And we're getting spicy here. Anyway, I'm trying to remember what the other movie was. Gosh, and it's a good one too. But anyway, and then I'm getting like the American Hustle is coming by disc, and a few others, Nebraska, so on and so forth, films I've seen. But I'm looking forward to it. So last night we watched one of the movies, and we watched. I just said, well, let's watch the movie that's the least kind of like demanding of you. Because she wanted to watch August Osage County, and I said, let's watch that on the weekend. That's Meryl Streep, and And I have to watch them all because I actually vote in the SAG Awards. So I watched this film. It's called Enough Said. It was the last film with James Gandolfini and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And you know what? If you haven't seen this film, when it comes out on DVD or whatever, or if it's playing in a little theater and you have nothing to do, go see this film. This is a great little film. Sweet movie. Poignant, funny. It's got everything going for it. And Gandolfini, for being his last film, he was just magnificent. You know, have you ever seen Gandolfini play a totally lovable character? I don't think I have.
Yeah, I have in something. I can't remember what it was, though.
Well, in this case, even in The Loop, he was like a general, so he wasn't completely lovable.
Oh, no, on stage I saw him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I forgot what the name of the show was, but
Yeah.
he was good on stage.
Yeah. But, man, he is just so lovable and likable and sweet, and you feel bad he's dead, you know? And Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who up until now really basically has only, so far as I know, done comedy, has never done something like this where she had to get up some dramatic chops, and she is really, really good. In fact, she's been nominated for Best Actress with the SAG Awards, and she's also been Best Actress for Veep, because they also do TV as well. So. Anyway, so 12 Years a Slave. I'm trying to remember what the other movie was. Hold on a second. I can look it right up because my business manager sent me the whole mailing, and I can tell you in a second what. Come on. Hit it. Where is it? Well, there it is. The other film is, because I forgot it. Philomena. You know this thing with Dame Judi Dench and Steve Coogan? So,
Yeah, I heard about it.
Anyway, I'll let you know how I like these movies. I won't be giving away my special who I'm going to vote for, although I will say who I voted for. But, man, all I'm saying is Enough Said was a surprisingly good film, and probably should get more recognition than it has gotten. It got good reviews. I just don't know if it's the kind of thing that's going to do great box office. Anyway, so that's my little embarrassment of riches, is that I got 5 movies yesterday. That, in fact, August Osage County doesn't hit the theaters till Friday, right? Something like that.
I think so. Yeah, it's not out yet.
So we don't even have to. We were going to go see it. Now we don't have to. We were going to go see American Hustle, but we don't have to. So. Nah. Am I gloating now? Is that part of the problem here?
That's what it is.
Yeah. We come back, a lot of things I want to do today, first of which is it's going to be a pretty long segment, too, about my friend who just passed, enemy, too. I'll tell you all about it and the history I had with a guy by the name of Al Goldstein, who passed yesterday at the age of 77. Stay where you are. We'll be right back, okay? Now, Albert, if he was still a member in good standing of SAG-AFTRA, would not be able to download these movies because you hate iTunes, right?
I don't care for iTunes. If that were the way for me to get the movies, I would get the movies that way.
Yeah, well, that's what you have to do. You have to. People who don't belong to iTunes have to kind of join iTunes in order to do it.
I have an iTunes membership.
Oh, you do?
I'm not an idiot.
Oh, you didn't tell me that, because you told me I don't want to have a membership to iTunes because I have to then give them my credit card.
Yeah, I didn't want to be forced to do that.
But you did.
I had no choice.
What'd
When
you-
you gave me your iPad years ago,
Oh, okay.
how could I use the iPad without getting on iTunes?
Right, because you wanted to get all the apps.
Exactly.
Right, even though they were free, you have to, yeah.
No, I never put pay apps on my things.
No. You are, I mean, truth be known, I'm the Jew, he's the cheap one.
I'm not cheap. I'm frugal.
Oh, is there a difference between being cheap and frugal?
Yes, frugal means
I
you
know.
use-
No, here's the definition. If you try to save money and you're a Gentile, you're frugal. And if you're
I'll
a Jew,
accept that.
if you're a Jew, you're cheap.
I'll accept that definition. In fact, I'll go one further and say if you do it and you're a Jew, you're a cheap bastard.
Oh, I see.
You're a cheap bastard.
When I was a kid, I used to say to my father, why are Scotchmen thrifty and Jews are cheap? What's the difference, you know? Anyway, so that's the story. But Albert's very thrifty about these things. But he didn't like he belonged to iTunes. I didn't know that.
For everything you can buy, you can get something that's free that's just as good.
Yeah, but, you know, but I think it's a great way for them to deliver these movies, to tell you the damn truth, you know. And last year when they did it, they had it so that the movie expired after a certain date, so you couldn't watch it anymore. And there's no expiration date on them anymore. So who knows? We got a caller here who wants to talk about something that I was going to talk about. Who is this?
It's a Stretch in Connecticut.
Hi, Stretch. How are you?
All right. So why is it in December that we always lose all the great ones? Nelson Mandela, Lynn Samuels, and Al.
Well, let's see. To begin with, I wouldn't lump Nelson Mandela in with the other two. And Nelson Mandela was a humanitarian, and I think the other two hardly were humanitarians.
Well, but he fought for freedom.
Huh?
They all fought for freedom.
What? Lynn Samuels fought for freedom?
Well, in Al's case, I guess.
In Al's case, no. Al fought for Al. I'll explain all this. I'm going to do a whole thing here on him in a second. But Al fought for Al. You know, don't ever think that Al ever fought for freedom. It's just that when he got challenged, in order to save his own ass, he had to fight for freedom. You get what I'm saying? He's what I call, and there are a lot of people like this, unintentional heroes. In other words, they didn't step up to the plate kind of stepped up to them. Get what I'm saying?
I see.
And that in order to save their own ass, they had to change things. I always said the same thing about Larry Flint. Larry Flint was an unintentional hero. Larry Flint, I think, did more for law in this area than Al ever did by getting that Supreme Court decision against Jerry Falwell. But in a lot of ways, Flint did it to save his own ass, too. But as a result, he becomes an unintentional hero. And I think that between the two people, Al Goldstein and Flint, who always had this kind of thing going between them, Flint was the one who really changed things. Al changed some stuff, but Flint really changed stuff.
I thought it was interesting that Flint actually hired Al at the end of his life to write for his magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess he didn't.
And that didn't last. If I remember correctly, that didn't last very long. Well, you know, I was there when Al first met Larry Flint. In fact, I had the cameras out and was shooting it for video when they first met. And the thing that I guess galled Al was that Flint kind of imitated Screw Magazine, at least when Hustler started, you know. A lot of the same kind of features, same kind of things that Al did. Only it didn't have that same pizzazz. So what did Flint do? He went out and hired the editor of Screw Magazine, my friend Bruce David, to be his editor in chief. And the magazine then took on a much better existence. As Al put it, I remember in that interview, as he said, I think it was kind of interesting that you managed to get the page numbers right sequentially, that it was that bad. But I was there when they first met, you know.
It would be interesting to hear Bruce David back on the air today, and I'm sure he would have some recollections. I mean, I certainly...
Well, Bruce and I were talking yesterday because I informed him. In fact, there were a couple of people that I informed that Al was dead that didn't know it. Dennis Hoff out at the Moonlight Bunny Ranch, he didn't know it. And Bruce, who didn't know it. But, you know, Bruce is living up in the mountains now and is writing his manifesto, and I don't know, maybe making some bombs, I don't know. But
well, I wonder if Al would be proud that he got a New York Times obit.
Well, yes, and.
I mean, that would have been inconceivable in the 70s.
Well, I mean, so did Lynn Samuels, and Lynn Samuels wasn't that big a deal either. In Al's case, Al was a newsmaker, and his name was always in the papers, and he was, so he got a pretty good shot in the New York Times, but I mean, we don't know till we die how much we're going to get in the New York Times.
I mean, it's interesting, that a pornographer like him that died broke and alone, and you would think that Hugh Hefner is probably going to go the same way.
Yeah, well, I love how they talk about him being broken alone like it was some terrible thing, but it was something he brought on himself. I'm going to in a few minutes talk about my life with Al Goldstein, because as opposed to a lot of other people today will say, oh, my friend Al Goldstein, blah, 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 blah. My relationship to Al was even deeper than that. I mean, we were buddies. We were back in the beginning. He and I hung out a lot. I was on a date with him when the first date he went out with on his wife. It was a blind date, and he went out with the woman who became his wife and the father of his child.
What number?
Number 2.
I think
it was
that
number
if you
2.
look,
Number 1, I'm trying to remember her name now. Her name was it Mary? Who was a gorgeous woman. God, she was hot. And then he divorced her. She was an airline stewardess, and he married Gina, who then became I think probably his longest-standing wife, and bore him their child Jordan. And I was on the first date with them, the two of them. We double dated. My girl, maybe my wife at the time, and. Or my girlfriend or whatever, and Al and Gina, and I hold myself responsible now for what turned out to be a lousy marriage. So,
when was the last time you saw him or spoke to him?
It's been years, and I'm going to explain why in a while here. Al was a very difficult person. I read a thing yesterday that said that Al Goldstein died with only a few friends. And then they listed, I think, Penn Jillette, who paid his rent for a while when he was out in Staten Island, and Ratso Sloman, who's a writer, and there was Ron Jeremy. Those were his only friends at the end. Well, they were his only friends because he blew everybody else away, He was so contentious. I mean, there was a point, I think I stopped actually having anything to do with Al maybe 15 years ago. It was a luncheon, and he just was mean to me. And as I walked away from it, I was with my friend Steve Gruberg. I looked at Steve and I said, that's it. I said, I don't need that kind of abuse from anybody. I mean, it was just, it was unwarranted abuse. I'm Al's friend, and he's abusing me.
Was it just a psychosis? He's mentally ill?
I have no idea. But I said, I don't have to put up with that. And from then on, I really didn't see Al until, God, I'm starting to tell this story, until the bankruptcy of Screw Magazine. And he wound up having to live in some little flea bag hotel. And my friend Steve and I decided, we really got to come to his rescue. And I said, I know I'm mad at him, but God, he's been my friend. He was my friend over the years, and I don't like to see anybody in this kind of situation. So we went over and saw him. And we tried to, what we wanted to do is I created Midnight Blue along with Bruce David. Anybody who tells you that Al Goldstein created Midnight Blue is dead wrong. Okay.
I mean, in all the press today, it's all about him doing that, and you can see all the old clips, and it's amazing.
Yeah, well, but those are clips not when I started the show. Those clips are later on when I left and he took it over. I did everything I could to keep him off the show, and there was a reason for that. But I'm telling too much of the story already. But we went up to the hotel room with the idea that if he was going bankrupt and if the sheriff had padlocked the doors and he was going to be able to go back in, that we were willing to buy Midnight Blue from him because I had created it. Steve was running a TV company, the very studio we're working out of. Steve created. He died a few years ago, but Steve created, and he was in the video business, and we offered Al something like $15,000 for all the tapes, right? And we didn't know if we could even do anything with them. Other people have since bought them up and done nothing with them that made them any real money. Okay. But we were looking for a way to put money in his pocket, okay? So, and this was at a time where $15,000 was a lot more money than it is now, and I think we offered him $15,000 for all the rights to the tapes, and he then said, "No, I want 25." And we're thinking, we're here giving him probably more than it's worth, because we just want to we want to help him out, but we also don't want to give him a handout, because that wouldn't be nice either. There's something wrong about a handout. I don't know. You don't like to hand out money to your friends. You'd rather make them some kind of deal. So he says, "No, 25,000." We said, "Well, then take it and shove it." And we walked out. We were both mad because, hey, we went in to help him, and he upped the stakes all of a sudden.
Yeah, if
I'm telling you the honest to God truth. About 5 weeks later, he sold all the Midnight Blue tapes to somebody for $5,000. So after that, I went, I mean, if he doesn't want to, and I did see him a few times after that too, because then he became the greeter at the Second Avenue Deli. And so Steve and I went down to see him there. He, at that point, he was kind of nice, because I guess he was the greeter, and you're supposed to be nice. I saw him there. And I saw him one other place. He became a salesman at a cigar store on Fifth Avenue. And I went down to see him there. But basically, it was kind of one of these things where, I wanted to stay as far away from Al as possible, because every time I saw him, I was abused, or, I was assailed. And it wasn't something I deserved, because I had been friends with him. I had been, are you ready for this, business partners with him for about 6-7 years. So, and there was no bad blood from that, by the way, I might add. There was no real bad blood from that. The only bad blood was he once said I was the only person who ever made any money off Midnight Blue, because he had to buy me out. He never made a penny off of Midnight Blue. And so, these are the things, the reason why I probably can tell you I haven't seen Al in a long time. And my friend Steve went out and saw him when he was in the vet's home. And I know that Dennis Hoff was in town. He said he was going to go see Al, but I don't know if he ever did. And I was thinking about maybe going out with Dennis, but I didn't. So really, I haven't seen. I guess I have seen Al when, like, at the cigar store in the Second Avenue Deli, in the last 10 years or so. But that's about it. And a lot of it was because he would take people and he would push them away, And if you would say to him, "Al, I want to help you out. Here's $20," he'd say, "Give me 40," And he was a very, very difficult person. Dare I say, an asshole, all right? It wasn't like Al did wonderful things for people. But he was a brilliant asshole. I admired him greatly as a writer. He was, you look at a picture of Al here, and I mean, he's fat, and he looks like the pornographer, right? If you were to do a cartoon of a pornographer, you'd make him look like Al Goldstein. And so whenever he would go into a debate with somebody, they'd think they were going in talking to this fat, cigar-smoking, ring-wearing pornographer. And Al would then dazzle them with his logic and his intelligence. This guy, in fact, this guy taught me in interviewing how to argue with somebody. And he taught me by me watching him. And he had a very good trick. For instance, if you would say to him, as most people would interviewing a pornographer, well, what about the children, right? That's always the thing they bring up. What about the children? He would walk right into the question rather than evade it and leave the interviewer completely off guard. And what he would say to them is something like, I don't do Screw Magazine for children. I do it for adults. Bung, you know, pure logic. I mean, he was a brilliant, you wouldn't want to get into an argument with Al on television. You'd lose.
He was still doing his rants as recently as 2008. They're all up on YouTube. You can see different links to them. He's ranting about Obama, and he had some very prescient, thoughts, and that, he likened, Obama to, if you're in the desert dying of thirst, and here's this guy carrying the water. It's an illusion.
Yeah, but I do have to fight the notion that he created Midnight Blue, because I think. See, I never deny who had something to do with it, and the guy who co-created Midnight Blue with me was Bruce David, and then Bruce left about just before we went commercial, because he took the job with Flint. Al never had anything to do with the creation of Midnight Blue. He financed it, but he had nothing to do with creating it. And we did everything we could to keep him off the show because we wanted to create a program that wasn't associated. It wasn't a matter of not wanting to be associated with Screw Magazine, but if we were going to do a thing called, called Screw, then we couldn't do what was in that magazine on cable. They wouldn't allow us. So if we came up with our own entity called Midnight Blue, which happened to be a terrific name. And I'll explain later how that name came about. But we would then be able to define ourselves and what Midnight Blue was as opposed to Screw Magazine. And that's why it was originally called the Screw Magazine of the Air. And then when I went in and, well, I'll explain the whole thing in a couple minutes. But anyway, thank you, Stretch, for calling, okay?
Thank you. All
right. We'll get on with the Al Goldstein story in a moment. I was going to do quite a bit of time, and it looks like I have already, right, Albert? We'll take a break, and then we'll come back with more of it. It's snowing on our set. You know, we get those graphics and stuff from a company, and except for the shield, which is Albert's creation. But I went looking, Albert, just for snow, so maybe we could have it snow in the studio. With the chroma key blue in the back. Nothing. Can't find one anywhere.
Really?
No. I wish I could just find the snow. Right? That would be cool.
How come though?
Huh?
You mean just to be in front of you?
Yeah.
I'll give you the snow globe in the
snowing
meantime.
in the studio, right?
Yeah.
That kind of joke. Best we could come up with is that.
Yeah.
The snowball from hell. Is there another call about Alan here? Huh?
It could be.
Could be. Who's this?
Your least favorite caller.
I don't want to talk about Duck Dynasty right now.
He'll talk about pornography with you. You know that.
Well, I heard you were talking about that. So, yeah, I'm sorry about your loss because I knew you knew him. And, out of all the public, I've read about every pornographic publication out there except for Screw Magazine.
Well, then you haven't read it. You haven't read the best.
No, it was never available in my area.
Yeah.
You had Hustler.
Okay, well, listen, I'd like to get back to telling my story today, Doug, rather than...
Well, why did you pick up on me then?
Well, because I didn't want you to sit there on the line while I blabbed along. That would be...
Well, that's very nice of you. But anyway, let me just wish you happy holidays. I know you had kind of a rough 2013, but I know 2014 is going to be better for you.
Don't say that. Don't say that. You know what happened? My father, as a year passed, and he'd had kind of not a great year the year before, said, I just have a feeling everything is going to be great next year, in the new year. And then he dropped dead. So I never ever say things are going to be better in the next year for that reason. I feel you're just jinxing it, and you'll probably drop dead. And with all these people I know around me who are dropping dead, I lost my best old friend, Roy Trumbull, just around Thanksgiving, and now I'm losing Al. And, you know, I'm starting to be able to check off the list of the people I know who are dying, and it's terrible. It's just
well, I was just trying to be optimistic for you there. So
well, that's nice of you to say. And my life is good. I'm married to a wonderful woman, and I've had fun doing this for as long as it lasts. And, you know, I'll always find something to do. But you know, the only thing I miss is that income. That's basically it. Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying, as a road warrior, I'm glad you're out there. Even though you don't know me from Adam, but I feel like you know, we're friends because we have at least a decent conversation. But at least let me say briefly one thing on Duck Dynasty. I know you asked me not to. I know you'll probably hang up on me and get a good laugh out of that. But I just cannot believe it's sort of like the right wing. It's sort of like, hey, listen, we can't pick on the Jews anymore. We can't pick on the blacks. Picking on the Muslims, well, that's kind of dying out.
I was going to get into this later. Let me just say that I think that for a network that hires a bunch of assholes to do a TV show for them, when they act like assholes, to fire them or to put them on waivers is hypocritical. All right? I think this guy has a right to say anything he wants to, including let's gas all the Jews. But, you know, they didn't, it wasn't like, you look at this guy, it wasn't like they were exactly hiring the sweetest guy in America, right? They were hiring these weirdos, right? And then when they act weird, they go, oh, and we don't want to stand by anything they say. Well, if you didn't want to stand by anything they said, then why did you put them on in the first place? And they've been spouting religion on the show, and I hear they end there. I haven't seen the show. They end every show with a prayer. Come on! You knew who they were, and when they finally acted like it, you're denying any kind of culpability in this.
Yeah, but I guess this is sort of like the right wingers, the typical bunch there. They're acting like, oh, he has a First Amendment. This is a violation of the First Amendment.
I would agree with him. He has a First Amendment right to say anything he wants to, including kill all the Jews, kill all the gays, or whatever. He has the right to say anything he wants to say. What he said, he based on his biblical beliefs. You know that you're going to hell if you're a rump roaster. He just was spouting his particular beliefs, and he wasn't even doing it on Duck Dynasty. He was doing it in GQ magazine. So it's kind of like what happened with Ed Schultz when he did something on his radio show, and they took him off the air on MSNBC. What's that? You know, he didn't do it on Duck Dynasty. You have nothing to apologize for.
I'm offended that he was on GQ.
And by the way, GQ doesn't seem to be apologizing.
Not a bit.
But yeah, as you said before, he has a First Amendment right. And my point is like, hey, you guys are saying he doesn't have a First Amendment right. Yeah. He didn't get arrested. All it is A&E made a marketing decision, thinking, he offended a part of our audience.
Look, you send out the memo saying we don't agree with Phil Richardson or Robertson. What's his name? I don't know. Was ZZ Top by any chance? You say I disagree with him, and you leave it at that. But we'll put him on waivers. You know you're going to bring him back for the next season because this show gets you big ratings. It's it's like letting what's her name over at CBS go, Lara Logan. I mean, what? They'll bring her back. So why even let her go in the first place?
Well, I'm sure the rest of the family is going to say, hey, if he can't be on the show, then there's no show anymore.
Well, if I were them, I would tell them, to take it and shove it up their ass. But anyway, listen, I got to go here.
Hey, listen, but anyway, enjoy your. What's your schedule for next week? Are you taking a whole week off?
No, we're taking off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of the following week.
Oh, so I got Monday and Tuesday.
And then the whole year after that, we're off. So it's
all right. Well, listen, have a great one, and enjoy it, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
We'll take another break, and maybe I can get to my stories about Al. Don't go away. Just stay right where you are. In place. Don't move. Now, if you got to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. Hey, welcome back. It's snowing. It's not snowing. You know it's supposed to be what? Did you see 68 degrees in New York on Sunday?
I'll take it.
68 degrees. Welcome to summer, folks.
global warming.
And then the next day, it's like back down to freezing again.
Global warming.
It's global warming. It's global something. Anyway, welcome back to the program. Let's talk about Al Goldstein. I don't know. I seem to know exactly kind of when it was that I met Al for the first time. He had just started Screw Magazine with his partner Jim Buckley. Remember, Screw Magazine wasn't just Al Goldstein. It was a very brilliant guy, young guy. It was basically the business brains of the two, and very quiet. Didn't want the publicity, and not that he was ashamed of what he was doing, but he just didn't want the publicity. Al loved to be in front of the cameras and getting all the publicity. I guess it was kind of a certain self-loathing that he had that made him want appreciation. But he and Jim Buckley started this thing called Screw Magazine, and shortly after they started it, I was doing a radio program here in New York, and I said, I want to have these guys on the air. And I can't remember whether Jim came with him, but I do remember Al came with him, and at that point, it was like kismet. Al and I became friends. I enjoyed him. I enjoyed his intelligence. I enjoyed his wit. He was surprisingly different than what I expected. He looked like what I expected, but he didn't have the brains of what I expected. He was a sharp, smart, shrewd individual and could out-argue anybody with pure logic and could synthesize a very complex idea into a very small, simple scintilla of wit and criticism. So anyway, I liked Al, and Al and I became very, very close friends. This is not, you know, sometimes we call people friends. They say, oh, my friend so-and-so died. And I knew them, but I didn't know them that well. But everybody says, oh, my friend, right? It's kind of like, I guess we've cheapened the word friends. To me, a friend is somebody you spend a lot of time with. That is, you're kind of having a bromance, as the term became. And, and you also have different kinds of friends. Like Albert is my friend, but he's kind of my work friend because we don't spend that much time outside of our work environment, right, Albert?
Yeah.
You know, so we're friends, but we're work friends. We're part of that extended family that happens at work. But Al was my friend, and Al and I would do things together, and we would go out places together, and he would take me to porno films. I remember once he took me to he used to review porn films, right? So he would go, and they were movie theaters at the time, and he would take me to the movie theaters with him, and we'd watch these porn films, and he'd review them. And one day he said, oh, we're going to go to a great porn film. They say it's terrific. There's only one problem. And I said, what's that? He says, it's gay. And I said, well, I don't mind. I've never seen a gay porn film. I'd like to see what that aesthetic is as they see it. So we went and we saw it, and I was kind of enlightened by watching a gay porn film because it made me realize that everybody always portrayed gay as being feminine, right?
Right, effeminate.
Effeminate.
Right.
And when you watch this porn film, there was nothing effeminate about it. I mean, they're shoving fists where fish shouldn't go, and they're all greased up, and it was actually very masculine, and I found that interesting, but not arousing, however.
So let me see what getting oral sex from a man is like.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
We're not going to get into that.
Okay.
Now.
Okay.
We've mined that.
Yes, we have
humor.
mined that.
All right. So he then goes back and writes the review, and it comes out in Screw Magazine. And he says, I went to go see it with Alex Bennett, right? And then he starts to describe that we're watching the film and how I was so aroused I went down on him. And
that was in the review?
Huh?
That was in the review.
That was in the review, yeah.
Very nice.
How I was jerking off to it. And I mean, of course I wasn't mad because I found it hilarious.
Yeah.
But that was Al, and that was my relationship with Al. And I liked Al. I mean, I like intelligent people. and he was intelligent. And we saw each other a lot. I met a girlfriend at one of his parties. I mean, it was one of those kind of things where he was very important to my life, and hopefully I was important to his. And as I said, even so much so that I went out with him on his first date. We double dated, went on his first date with a woman who was then going to become his wife and the mother of his only child, Jordan. That was my relationship to Al. It was a good one, and it was a fine one, and I don't think one that very many other people enjoyed, because while he also called people friends. Nobody got as close as I did in those days. And the other part that was good about it is, outside of the fact I had a radio program, which he was welcome to be on anytime he wanted to, there was no way he was using me. You know, there were other people later on in his life that he would use, but not me. I was there when he first met Larry Flynt. Here's what happened. I'm in a bank one day, because in those days you couldn't there were no ATMs, so if you wanted to get your money out of the bank, you had to do it between 9 and 3. Remember those days?
Yep.
And I used to work overnight, so I had to stay awake to go to the bank. But anyway, I go to the bank, and there's my friend Bruce David, who I know from Screw Magazine because he's the managing editor of Screw Magazine. And they had just started a cable TV show called the Screw Magazine of the Air, and he said to me, "What do you think of the show?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with it, okay?" I said, to begin with, you can't do Screw Magazine on the air. It's impossible. They will not let you on the cable system because they won't, you've got people blowing people and penetration in Screw Magazine. Can't do any of that, right? You can use the language, you can show some nudity, but you can't do that. I said, so calling it Screw Magazine of the Air raises expectations and makes people expect that it's going to be something which it's not. I said, that's problem number one. Number two, you're doing it in the studio live. You're bringing people in, they sit in chairs, you talk about sex, okay? I said, why don't you just take a camera, go out to places, and show people this world of sex, and then edit it together. And Bruce said to me, well, we don't have portable cameras, and we don't have an editing system. And I said, well, I'm big into this thing, and I have an editing system, and I have a portable black and white unit. We can go out and shoot this stuff. So we started doing that. Well, about the second week that we were doing that, the cable company said, we don't want any company, and they were aiming it at Screw, any company to have a commercial name as part of its title. So Screw Magazine of the Air was obviously out of the question. So for a week, Bruce David and I kicked around names, and it was at one point going to be the Ozone Bozo something hour. We were going to call it that up until about a day before we were going to edit the final show. And then I said, I was reading this article in Variety, and there was this TV show in Canada that was in trouble, and it was called The Baby Blue Movie. And I went, Baby Blue Movie, blue, that's good, that's good. And then at the same time, the cable company said, oh, by the way, we don't want you going on at 11:30 anymore. That's too early. What, the kids aren't going to be asleep yet? You have to go on at midnight. And that was it, Midnight Blue. And so we went on the air as Midnight Blue. It was Bruce and I, and Al, to a lesser extent, because I was supplying the equipment at that point. There was no cost of the time on the air because it was public access. And since it was on a first-come, first-served, non-discriminatory basis, basically they couldn't really censor us except for what would be considered in violation of law. And in that case, blowjobs and penetration and so on would be considered in violation of the law. So working within those confines, we created this show which became a sensation. It was never called, it was called Midnight Blue. Later on, when he started putting money into it because we had to go to color and we had to get editing equipment and so on, and there was about a, $25,000 outlay that he had to make, we added the name Al Goldstein's Midnight Blue. We didn't mind him having possession of the title. We just minded him being on the show a lot. He occasionally was on the show. Occasionally he would do a rant and whatever. The famous fuck you that he does, by the way, I hate to be bragging here, I created. Because what happened was at the end of the show, one day when I did the final announcement on the old black and white shows, and after the first show I went, have a nice night everybody, and fuck you Tom Snyder. And so every week it was fuck you somebody. So later on when he took over the show after I left and insinuated himself onto the show a lot, he took that fuck you and made it his own. But Al and I never had a harsh word during the whole thing. He was a he was a good friend, but a difficult partner. Mainly because I could never get him to spring the kind of money it was going to take Midnight Blue and move it to that next level. The show was a sensation in New York City. There was every reason to believe that we could have taken that thing nationally and done something with it and with the name and with the reputation. But he was never going to spend the money on it. So when we became business partners, it was a slightly different relationship. You know what I'm saying, Albert? You really don't want to become a business partner with a friend?
Yes.
And that's what happened. But after we were through with that period of our life, and I quit because I wanted to move to California and take a regular radio job, I felt that, you know, all that I had to do, I had to do. And it was quite an adventure, too, because the cable company took Midnight Blue off the air, and then we had to get the ACLU involved, and then we had to change the name of the show. I changed it to American Blue, and then slowly changed it back to Midnight Blues America, and then I changed it back to Midnight Blue 77, because they said we couldn't use the name Midnight Blue. And eventually, about 2 years later, 2.5 years later, it was Midnight Blue again. It was pretty much the same show. But it was a whole adventure in which I went to Washington and spoke before a congressional committee about Midnight Blue. And it was, after about 5 years of that, I said, you know, I've done what I had to do. You know, we changed the landscape of television in some way. I had a guy from a television network come up to me and say, thank you. And I said, for what? And he said, by what you're doing, you lower the bar. In other words, you're the outlaws, you do it here. When it filters down to us, it lifts all boats. And so we can do more, we can get away with more. Thank you for that. And I went, God, we really did do something, didn't we? We kind of changed television. So I was very happy with it, but you know, after 5 years I went, you know, I really want to get back to radio. I've done all I'm going to do here. And I sold my part of Midnight Blue to Al Goldstein in a transaction he referred to as the only that I was the only person ever to make money off of Midnight Blue. In any event, I moved out to California, but I every time I came to New York, I saw Al. Every time I came to New York, I had him on my radio show if we were doing it from New York, and I kept my relationship going with Al. But then there was a falling out, and I'll tell you about that. When we come back after we take this break, as I finish off my... Huh?
Did you notice that you're in the cartoon on that Screw magazine cover?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
Where?
Look at the guy in the blue shirt right across from Al Goldstein. That's you.
Is that me?
That's... Wait a minute.
What?
I meant this. Look at that. That's you smoking a cigarette.
Is it?
You see it?
Could
That's
be,
you.
because I had a mustache at the time.
Yes, that's you. No
I'm
question
just trying
about
to think
it.
if there was anybody else at Screw who looked like that.
No, I think that's you. You didn't notice that?
No.
That's unquestionably you.
I never knew I was ever on a cover of Screw magazine, but you might be right.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back. It is the Alex Bennett program. We're kind of telling the story about my relationship with Al Goldstein, who passed yesterday at the age of 77. Continuing with the story, I moved out to California, and from time to time I would come to New York, and Al and I would get together. Every now and then, Al would have these luncheons. He would always. The one thing about Al was he loved to spend the money, and he loved to spend money on people. It wasn't a charity. It wasn't like he went out and said he went out to the poor and said, "Here's $100," you know, or whatever. He spent it on wealthy people, and he would have people come to his these luncheons. And I remember going to these luncheons, and they were very diverse. The coroner of the city of New York was at this lunch, and then somebody else famous, and and he would host those. He also had a townhouse uptown right next to Bill Cosby's, and we would always go up there and hang out. And I remember he had a pot-bellied pig, and he lived a rather luxurious lifestyle. Spent almost everything he was making, and that was probably his big downfall eventually, because when he went bankrupt, he didn't have the money to save himself. In any event, before the downfall of Screw Magazine, I went to California, became very successful doing a radio show out there, and occasionally I would come back to New York and see him. And then eventually I was fired for a time in San Francisco. Everybody every now and then got the idea they could get along without me, and then they got rid of me, and then found out they couldn't get along without me and would hire me back. There are several of us like this in the business. You know the kind of guy, right, Albert? You've worked with them yourself, where they fire them, they think they can get along without them, and they can't.
Right.
But anyway, so I got fired, and I moved to Florida. I got a job at WIOD in Florida. And Al had a house down there, and he would spend a great deal of time down there. He was letting other people run Screw Magazine, and he had either a girlfriend or married this younger woman, much younger woman. And I happened to be moved to Florida with a much younger woman. So we would sit there in Florida, these two old Jews sitting in this condo in Florida with these two young chicks with us going, boy, are we lucky. Boy, are we a stereotype of two old Jews with their young girlfriends, But that you get the idea that my life with Al wasn't just a passing kind of thing. It was something where we continued to become friends, and in spite of the distance between us. I can't remember what the instance was. I do remember the restaurant. It was up here on 23rd Street, right up here at 23rd and Broadway. We went to a restaurant because my friend Steve Gruber said, Al wants us to join him for lunch. Do you want to go? And I said, sure. I love Al. Al's an old friend. And I went to lunch. And throughout the entire lunch, and I don't know what the reason was or whatever, Al was very contentious. He was doing everything he could to goad me. One of the things, I guess, that has bothered me in my career was the notion that I stole from Howard Stern when, in fact, probably was the other way around. I never listened to Howard Stern in my life. In fact, if I've listened to more than 3 hours of Howard Stern in my whole life, it'd be amazing. People say, how come? And I went, because every time I was working was when he was on the air. So I never got to hear him. So he never influenced me, but I know he listened to me when he was younger. But anyway, so at that time especially, Howard was kind of a piece of contention with me. And at lunch, he's doing things like, the greatest guy on radio is Howard Stern. Hey, he's terrific. Now, he's not saying this because he believes Howard Stern is the greatest guy on radio. He's saying this because he knows it will goad me. And I'm thinking to myself, why? I'm his friend. I haven't done anything to him. We haven't had a harsh word in years, and yet he's sitting here and he's goading me. And I remember that, and I may have been even out of work at the time. I can't remember. I don't think I was. I think I was actually working. And it came to paying the bill, and I paid the bill. Al said, I'll take care of it. And I went, nope, no, it's on me. And Al thought I was doing something nice, but my attitude was, this son of a bitch, for what he's done to me at lunch, is not going to pay for this lunch. I'm picking it up. He's not going to insult me by me taking advantage of his good graces or whatever. And I picked up the bill, and as we walked out, I remember whispering to my friend Steve, I said, I don't have to put up with that kind of crap from anybody. That's the last time I want to ever talk to Al Goldstein. And that pretty much was the last time, at least at that point, that I talked to Al Goldstein. Until the incident I mentioned earlier, where all of a sudden they padlocked Screw Magazine because it was going bankrupt, and the sheriff came along because he hadn't paid his rent in God knows how long. And we went to the hotel because somehow I felt that no matter how badly I felt about Al, and my friend Steve said, look, I know how you feel about Al if you don't want to come along. I said, nah. I said, for all that he goaded me and everything, I said, we have been friends for years, and it's time now for me to be a friend for him. And so we went to the hotel to see if there was anything we could do. Told you the story about how we offered to buy Midnight Blue for 15 grand or something, or all the tapes, which were probably worth nothing. It still proved to be worth nothing to this day. But if we gave him the $15,000, he might be able to pay the rent and then open up the doors of Screw again. And of course, he then handled with us, and I walked away and I said, you see, there's no making peace with this person. He was getting to the point in his life where he was just contentious towards everyone. And I do remember now seeing him several other times after that. Steve and I went down to the cigar store where he was the salesman at the cigar store because he likes cigars. And the Second Avenue Deli where he was a greeter, and he held that job for a very short time. But it got him a lot of publicity. But each time it got him publicity, it was more like, look what's happened and how the great people have fallen. And it was getting pretty sad. And it just got to a point where I couldn't be with Al without just walking away and going, why did I do this to myself? And so I stopped seeing Al. And then I heard about the fact that he wound up in the hospital. He wound up in this veterans home, that he was broke. He then got married and was living with his girlfriend in her mother's house. And with all of that, I still went, Al brought this all on himself. And, and a lot of us fall, and there's someone there to catch us. And there's someone there to catch us because maybe we've caught other people or we've maintained certain friendships. Al didn't do any of that. And so in a way, I almost had to say, in a horrible way, he's only getting what he brought upon himself. And I just couldn't bring myself to go out and see him because I knew I would just walk away feeling like crap. One thing led to another, and I remember one incident, and this is the best one of all time. In the middle of all his being down and out and all of that, there's nothing worse than losing fame. Believe me, I know it. I see it. I see myself slowly becoming invisible. And you know what happens? All of a sudden, am I right, Albert? You get a radio show, you're not invisible anymore.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you don't have a radio show, you become more and more invisible.
Yep.
Well, the further, he had gotten to the point where he was completely transparent. And he calls up my friend Steve Gruber and says, on Friday night, or Saturday night, I'm going to commit suicide. And
I remember this.
Huh?
I remember when this happened.
You remember because it was while I was at Sirius.
Yes.
And he says, I'm going to commit suicide. Well, my friend Steve goes crazy. Now, out in Nevada was Penn Jillette. And Penn Jillette was paying the rent on Al Goldstein's place in Staten Island. He took pity on him. So my friend Steve calls Penn and says to Penn, Goldstein says he's going to commit suicide on Sunday. All of a sudden, and I had heard about this from Steve, right? all of a sudden, I'm getting calls from like Gilbert Gottfried. Is it true Al Goldstein's going to commit suicide? It's all over the country. And I call up my friend Steve, and I went, Steve, you idiot. I said, look, when people are going to commit suicide, and I think it's a pretty well-known fact, they don't call people and say they're going to do it. They've decided to commit suicide. They don't want anybody to talk them out of it. He's not going to commit suicide. It's a cry for, you know, attention. And sure enough, that's what it turned out to be. But I mean, Penn Jillette was ready to fly out to New York to take the gun out of his hand, and the whole country was going crazy about Al Goldstein's going to commit suicide. Of course, he never even came close. And then one thing happened to another. He got sick, and he wound up in a veterans hospital out in, where is it, Brooklyn, I think it is?
Yeah, I think Cobble Hill is what I read.
And a couple of weeks ago, Dennis Hoff, when he was here on our show, said, I'm going to go out and see Al at the hospital. And I was almost going to say, I'll go with you. And then I just didn't. Because, again, you know, I know that even at that point, he'd probably treat me like crap. And I don't think Hoff went out either. I think his good intentions were not acted out upon. So yesterday we get the news that Al died pretty much alone. He was with Larry Sloman, Ratso as we call him, and Larry's an author. He wrote the Howard Stern book. I think both of them actually, didn't he? If I'm not mistaken, he was the ghostwriter on them. He died of renal failure at the age of 77. And I can't say I mean, I'd like to say, I'll fuck him. You know, I just, you know, the way he treated me, I don't care. You know, he brought it all on himself. But I can't do that. Because this is the guy that's sitting there in that chair with his thumb up is the guy that was my friend and my pal. And we had a lot of good times together. And we also were business partners together. And we enjoyed doing that, oddly enough, even though he was the cheapest son of a bitch alive. But I
thought that was Gilbert.
Huh?
I thought that was Gilbert.
You know, what I would like to have seen was, well, you see, Al would always pick up a check. He wasn't that cheap. He would always pick up a check. All right. So what I always wanted to do, you know, the two cheapest people in the world are.
Yes, I do.
Gilbert Gottfried and Ron Jeremy. Really, honestly, truthfully. And I always wanted to do a video where I would send them off to dinner, right? And let them sit there, and then I didn't want to videotape the dinner, forget it. I mean, it might be funny and whatever. I wanted to see what happens when the check came and how long it would have to sit there before one of them picked it up. But anyway. Al, you know, you change things. You know, you made noise, and the world reverberated in some fashion, and you made pornography popular, and you made it accessible, and you fought the good fight, if nothing more, to protect your own ass. But you know, you were a great journalist, and when you were my friend, a great friend, and I'm going to miss you. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Great American Broadcast. I'm Alex Bennett. And here we are in our what we call our news set, and our Christmas presents ready by the fireplace there. And it's good that you are joining us here on this Friday. You want to take a look at the news, Albert? That's what it says, news. And there is news out there. There's this whole Duck Dynasty thing. This thing's been going on for, what, the last day? Where's that picture of Phil Robertson? Look at that. Isn't that ZZ Top?
Looks like one of them, yeah.
Yeah, looks like all of them, actually. Actually.
No, one of them's been without the beard for quite a while now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who did they wear those beards because they were somebody they didn't want people to know who they were?
I don't know the history of that.
Yeah. But anyway, that's not ZZ Top. That's Phil Robertson. Phil Robertson, among other things, is the leader of the clan of the Duck Dynasty. You know what these people do for a living? They make bird calls. In short, and this guy doesn't like gay people, but he makes something that people blow. I don't understand this, Albert. Explain it to me.
It's the irony of life.
And how you get a TV show and it becomes the most popular reality show on television based upon, what, 4 guys, something like 4 guys?
Yeah.
Who make duck calling, bird calls, duck call things. I just don't know. Am I getting too old? Am I missing this, Albert? Or don't you not understand it too?
Hey, I didn't understand Honey Boo Boo either, so.
Well, Honey Boo Boo,
This is beyond my scope.
Here was why Honey Boo Boo was. It's people watching other people who are worse off and stupider than they are so they can make fun of them.
That's Duck Dynasty to me.
Is that Duck Dynasty
Yeah.
too? Well, anyway, this guy's a big religious fanatic, and he came out in GQ magazine, and he said some stuff about gay people and so on. And by the way, I'll defend his right to say it. I will not agree with what he says, and I will say he's full of shit, and I'll say he's probably a low scumbag for having said something like that. But I will defend his right to say it because I say things, and if people don't like what I say, I would hate for anybody to suddenly, take me off the air or censor me in one way or the other because of my opinion. What?
Maybe it's happened.
Maybe it's happened. Look, to this day, right, Albert, we have no idea why we're not on Sirius
Can't be
XM.
sure, no.
Huh?
We can't be sure.
What are the current prevailing theories?
Money?
Money, that we were making too much money.
Right.
That seems to be the most popular theory, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
And we weren't, believe me, we weren't making the big bucks, folks, but Sirius is some of the cheapest people on the earth. Let's see, the other one was My Politics.
Political philosophy.
Which didn't fall in line with that progressive, feel-good, do-goodery kind of thing,
Right.
Because I didn't necessarily like everything Obama did, and I was not sitting there waving the flag for the Democratic Party. It's not that I was a right-winger. It's just that I was so far to the left that I found that what was going on not particularly to my liking. So we considered that's one of the reasons. Another reason, the third reason was age. That is, some people say they think it was age. Other people say it wasn't. I think it played into it, but it wasn't the reason. Huh?
I do too.
What?
I think it played into it.
You think it played into it?
Yeah. I think they thought, well, he's at the time of his life where it really doesn't matter if we fire him, and he'll be able to get along, and
And I think probably one of the major reasons we got dumped, and this is a weird one, is that somebody came along and talked to the powers that be there. Somebody very powerful. Okay, I won't say who.
I wouldn't say very powerful, but certainly with influence.
With a lot of money.
And money, yeah.
A lot of money. And that maybe, and just maybe, they offered to pick up the tab on the morning show. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because there's a lot of stuff on Sirius where other people are picking up the tab.
I've given a name to this.
What?
The media industrial complex.
The media industrial
That's what I call it. Everything in the media I call the media industrial complex now.
So any one of those reasons might be the reason we were gone. I can't be they didn't like me. They liked me a lot, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean they've
taken you to lunch several times.
Huh?
They've taken you to lunch several times since then.
Not recently.
Oh no.
But they supposedly liked me. I mean, I've talked to people who know the people involved personally who say they loved you, Alex. You were a very liked guy over there. I wasn't hated at Sirius, was I?
No. Even the people that hated you liked you.
That's true.
Right?
That's really true. Yeah, except for Lynn Samuels.
Well, she had no choice in the end.
She had no choice in the matter in the end. But anyway, how did that all come about? Oh, yeah. But when you hire a bunch of guys like these, and then you go, they went off the rails, what did you expect, for crying out loud? So all these Republican tardos have been coming to the defense of Phil Robertson, and I'll come to his defense too, because my feeling is, you know, you hire me to do a talk show. You want me to be controversial, right? And when I get controversial, you fire me? No. What you expected me to be this weirdo. When I act like the weirdo that I am, you don't suddenly start doing mea culpas. You hired me. But it's like, all of a sudden, what network are they on? I don't even know what network they're on.
A&E, I think.
A&E? A&E all of a sudden distances themselves. Oh, well, we have nothing to do with this. What do you mean you have nothing to do with it? You paid the paycheck that made these shows. Don't distance yourself from it. Say we don't agree with Mr. Robertson, but he's entitled to his opinion like every American.
Yeah, but if you don't agree and you think there's something wrong with it, then fire the guy.
Fire the guy, cancel the show.
Yes.
Don't say, you know what they're doing? They're saying, well, we're going to put him on waivers for a while. You know, he's not going to be on the show for a while. Well, they filmed all the shows for this season, and the next season's a year away. So, of course, you can put him on waivers, and he's going to go out and make some duck calls. His duck calling business is probably going to make a fortune. But anyway, so all these people have been chiming in on it. I'm not going to play any of these, Albert, except for one, because I have Newt Gingrich talking about him. Do we want to hear that?
He's your friend. Yeah, play Newt Gingrich.
Okay, what did Newt Gingrich have to say about it? Let's play Newt Gingrich and what he had to say about it.
He talks very specifically about loving everybody. He talks very specifically about not being judgmental towards anyone, that's God's decision, not his. I mean, it is remarkable. There are sections there where he sounds a lot like Pope Francis.
There's
and
nothing really
totally
remarkable
different framework.
about slandering people and then coming around and saying love everybody. I mean, people have been doing that time and time again. Love the sinner, but, you know, hate the sin. I mean, there's nothing remarkable about that.
You too want to claim the right that you get to edit the Bible so that the parts you approve of ought to be allowed to be talked about.
Actually, what we're pointing out is the hypocrisy that the right always want to edit the Bible to justify their positioning on things. That's the part where,
what are we editing? I'm accepting the whole text.
You're for slavery, and you're going to appoint...
First off, I completely disagree that the Bible in any way justifies slavery.
Well, hey, listen.
I think it comments on what happened.
I can't wait till after this commercial break.
Not for nothing that they're discussing a mythical piece of work that is as fictional as any book you will read. But what's amazing is that Newt Gingrich is equating Phil Robertson to Pope Francis, a man who, as recently as I think a month ago, said that gays should be accepted into the church. Am I right about that, Albert? That was pretty much
something
what
to
he
that
said.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know what, he's like Pope Francis. Come on, Newt. And then, of course, Sarah Palin had something to say about this. And, of course, we got to play Sarah because she's a bloody moron. Okay? Sarah, you there? You got Sarah? There she is.
Hold on.
She's wearing your camo, by the way. You notice that? She's wearing the camouflage.
This is all about freedom, free speech. You know, so many American families have spilled blood and treasure to guarantee Phil Robertson and everybody else's right to voice their personal opinions. And once that freedom is lost, Sean, everything is lost in our country. Now, A&E, they were absolute quacks on this one, the marketing department there. Here, they had just recently rolled out their new slogan from their marketing department, and it's Be Original. Well, that translates with A&E's marketing department today into Be Stupid, to get rid of the most popular patriarch on television today. I tell you, there are other networks that would just nab these guys up in a heartbeat. A&E really screwed up on this one.
No. Sarah, let me apprise you of something. What happens is these people get a show, or they get in the public eye, and then they all of a sudden think that everybody wants to hear their goddamn opinion on everything, when all they want to do is see them make duck calls or to be the ridiculous person they are. Well, you should know about that. And finally, I want to show you a guy. This guy, they say, has a show on Sirius XM. I never heard of him in my life, okay? But he also has a show out in San Diego, and his name is Mike Slater. Listen to him make a complete asshole out of himself by trying to compare, I think, this guy to some other guy.
But let's take a look at what he said. He said, my mission today is to go forth and tell people about why I follow Christ and also what the Bible teaches. And part of that teaching is that women and men are meant to be together, he says. However, I would not treat anyone with disrespect just because they're different from me. We're all created by the Almighty, and like him, I love all of humanity. Mike, get your thought in here.
Yeah, in 1958, a young boy wrote a preacher a letter saying that he's struggling with homosexuality. And this preacher wrote back, son, don't worry, there is a solution to your problem. That preacher was Martin Luther King Jr. Richard, do you hate Martin Luther King Jr.? Is he irresponsible? I guarantee you Martin Luther King Jr. loves that boy just like the Robertson boy.
That's laughable.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? No, listen to me. The point is that the Robertson family loves everyone. That's the point here. Just because he thinks something wrong doesn't mean he hates it.
Listen,
let's give Richard a chance to respond. Go ahead, Richard.
First off a second, Mike, I think that is that stretch is just way too far. It's a total straw man. Beyond that, this GQ interview is loaded with hatred. It's not only his talk about homosexuality, but he goes on to talk about how African Americans were doing pretty well during Jim Crow. The fact is that this guy's language in this interview is so absurd that there was no way for A&E to even keep him on the show without having some public backlash from the American people.
Oh, by the way, this is the Mike Slater we were talking about. I have a little news for you. He's on Sirius XM, and I'm not. We'll be right back. Scary. Welcome back. It is the Alex Bennett program, the Great American Broadcast. We come to you each several different ways. First of all, on live stream here, if you're watching us live. If you're listening to us on TuneIn.com, well, you've already found out there's another way to listen to us live, and then also on TuneIn.com. We broadcast 24/7. Today we'll be playing this show. And then starting tomorrow around 10 o'clock in the morning or something, we'll be running the whole week's worth of shows over and over again so that you can catch up on them if you want to. You're driving down the highway, you got access to the internet in your car. Perfect. Cool way. And we do this so that it plays well on radio, too. Also, you can go over to iTunes. You can subscribe to us. And every day, you can get our podcast downloaded to your iPhone or your iPad or your whatever. And also, on the Android, you go, what's the name of that app again?
Well, there's two. There's
the Alex Addict and the Great American Broadcast app, right, which will allow you to listen to all the shows. But what's the other one?
Podcast Addict. Podcast
Addict. But that allowed you to get a hold of all of the other podcasts. But if you want to hear us, you can there's even a thing there that at 10 o'clock on weekdays when we're live, we'll actually let you listen to it live. So you just Great American Broadcast podcast, that thing. You go get it. That's all I'm saying. Is somebody on the phone for me? Oh, he's clearing it now as we talk, I think. Finally, legal for same-sex couples to get married in New Mexico. The state Supreme Court ruled unanimously today that same-sex couples would be allowed to tie the knot statewide. This is the 17th state to approve same-sex marriage. Bravo, because slowly it's happening and sweeping across the country. And I couldn't be happier. Congratulations to New Mexico for a job well done. And in case you haven't read, Kate Middleton is suing the owners, I guess, which would be Rupert Murdoch, of the now-defunct News of the World for tapping her cell phone. Yes, Kate Middleton, too. Those guys didn't stop at any way to possibly get the information they wanted to get. Isn't that a good-looking couple? Well, yeah. He's not bad looking, is he?
No, he's okay.
He's okay. He's losing his hair, but then again, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Well, Albert doesn't. You'll never lose your hair, right?
Unlikely.
Unlikely. Did your paternal grandfather have a full head of hair?
He did, yes.
Okay, then you're fine.
Yes, I know.
Or is it paternal or maternal?
Maternal.
Maternal?
Right.
Okay. As long as he had hair, you're going to have it for a while. Who's on the phone here? Let's see. Oh, hey, Dan in Ohio. Hey. Hello, Dan.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing...
Happy belated birthday, by the way. I don't think.
Thank you. Thank you.
But, oh well. You know, this whole Duck Dynasty thing is just, you know, again, and I think it's probably everybody really. It's like, and especially if you're on Twitter, everybody loves to be outraged anymore, you know. It's like, I'm outraged at this and
well, I love the way A&E distances themselves from it. I mean, they're complicit in it because this guy would have never had an article written on him in GQ magazine if A&E hadn't given him a show.
Absolutely. A&E, and they knew what they were getting into. This guy's been saying stuff for years, hadn't he?
I think supposedly on the show, they end every show with a prayer.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's been talking to, like, I think in 2010 there was something he said, and I think he supported some Tea Party candidate or something like that.
He gives speeches all the time. I see them on the internet all the time where he's putting down.
So A&E knew what they were getting into, you know.
Look, I understand. You see, this is why I hate religion, but I understand why if he's a religious person, he doesn't feel a proclivity or a decency towards gays because he thinks they're all going to hell and that they're the next Armageddon or whatever. That's why I hate religion. But it's all based on his religious precepts, which means he hears voices.
Yeah, that's true. Also, really, when I was reading what he said, I think what he said about race was worse. The thing about the
blacks are better off with Jim Crow.
Yeah. I thought that was worse, really. And then you get Sarah Palin piling on. Of course, Sarah Palin, she wants to be outraged about everything.
Well, she said, you know, these guys can always go get a show somewhere else.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, Sarah, because look at you. You had a show on, what was it, some major channel there for a while. And now you've lowered yourself to like the Outdoor Channel or something like that hardly anybody ever watches.
He had a show on TLC, I think.
Yeah.
That's some Alaska wilderness crap or something.
Yeah.
So anyway, and you and I remember back on Sirius, you were talking about, speaking of Sarah Palin, just to go off on some a little bit. You know, you were talking about comparing her and Michelle Bachmann just as far as looks go, and I kind of agreed with you, but then I saw this one speech where Sarah Palin was wearing a tight white sweater, and I'll never forget it. She had a nice rack.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing with Sarah Palin and with Michelle Bachmann. You know, they're both let's say what's that? Attractive people.
Yeah.
And in the case of Sarah Palin, if she wasn't what she is, and I met her in a bar somewhere, and I had the ability to pick her up, I'd screw her brains out, you know.
Oh yeah.
But I couldn't do it. I couldn't even get an erection knowing what she stands for.
Well,
you know.
Mouth, then it's all over.
Yeah.
And once she starts talking with that horrible Shirley voice of hers, then I'm done.
And by the way, the same thing is true of Michelle Bachmann. I mean, if it weren't for just the sheer stupidity of Michelle Bachmann, and I met her in a bar, I'd probably do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, they are attractive women, and I hate that when they're attractive because I feel like you know, I don't know, they're Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS, you know, and I'm not, as a Jew, I'm not supposed to like them.
Yeah, well, they're kind of using that subtly to manipulate.
Well, they're using she's using her believe it or not, Sarah Palin is using her sexuality.
Absolutely.
To try and give herself a leg up, so to speak.
Oh yeah, if she was ugly, they wouldn't be paying attention to her.
She wouldn't have gotten this far if she was just, you know.
Yeah.
Just if she were plain looking, not even ugly, just plain looking. But because she looks this good, she's television ready, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Well, she was a beauty pageant. Did she win, or was she just a contestant?
I don't know. I don't know whether I can't remember whether she won or not. Maybe she won. Maybe she was Miss, Nome or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. But she's got a very nice rack.
Oh no, she is very nicely put together. For a woman who's had 5 kids, it's not like she looks like she's in a dress. She looks like a sack full of doorknobs.
Yeah.
She looks pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but that being the case, and all that being said, she's still a cunt.
Oh God, she's a nutcase.
Okay. Oh, did I say that about Sarah Palin?
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's appropriate.
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay, close your mouth, Sarah. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Well, thanks so much. Have a happy holiday.
Thanks, Dan. Who we got on line 2? Charlie in Texas. Hello, Charlie.
Hey, Alex. I just wanted to chime in on this Duck Dynasty thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, these people that are all up in arms about this Robertson guy, they're the same people that were calling for the Dixie Chicks head back in 2003 because of what you said.
You're right. There's a very good point. There's a very good point. And all they said, Natalie Main said in that particular case was that she was not, that they were not proud that George Bush was from their state.
Texas, yeah.
That's all they said.
Yep, and I mean, they crucified the Dixie Chicks, but now because one of their people makes some faux pas, they're all up in arms. Oh, you can't treat them like that. What about their free speech?
Well, what about the free speech of Natalie Main? Why didn't you stand up? A very good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Charlie.
So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, and now they're just getting, what they deserve.
Exactly, exactly. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You have a great weekend.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, what we're going to do is take a break. When we come back, we'll go to the pictures on the wall and tell you some more stories out of the news. Don't go away. Stay where you are. Welcome back to the Great American Broadcast. I'm Alex Bennett, and this is our fine little program. Glad you could join us. It's time to, we got another caller here. What do you know? Boy, a lot of calls today. Who's there? Who do you got? Oh, Paul in Florida. Hello, Paul.
Alex, something that I noticed, since whoever just called about duck, whatever you call it.
Dynasty. Yeah.
Yeah. When I first heard about it, I thought it was a documentary show about ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Because it said Dynasty, and when that hair's not there.
Yeah.
Fox News had a whole thing on that Martin Bassaw, whatever mentions his name, how they have done anything to him. He hasn't been penalized or anything. They had a week-long thing on Fox News not doing nothing to him.
Yeah.
Now, A&E did something while Martin only pursued one person, which is Sarah.
Yeah.
This guy smeared a whole whack of people.
Yeah.
They did something, now they're all up in arms. Why did they do that?
It beats me.
Yeah, they're a bunch of idiots. Anyway, I haven't called out in the last couple of days because I'm getting ready to make the big shove off to Nebraska, God willing, tomorrow.
Okay, but listen, we got a bad line.
Yeah, very, not noise on the line here. Yeah. I heard myself. Well, take care, Alex. All the best.
Bye-bye. You know what that noise is, Albert? I bet he's using a regular phone line and it's raining wherever he is. You remember when water used to get into the lines?
I don't remember that problem.
That's how it used to sound.
Okay.
By the way, a majority of people, let's go to our pictures on the board here. A majority of people believe that Santa is white and not like this. Now, why does Santa have to be white? Is that because the personification of him by the Coca-Cola Company and Camel cigarettes over the years made him white?
Yeah, so what's wrong with that?
Do you know
if he's a manufactured character, so what's wrong with that?
Do you know who first created the image of Santa Claus? I believe I'm right on this. You can look it up. Thomas Nast, the political cartoonist.
Was it?
Yeah, back in the 1800s. And that's where I guess he came out as being white. But I don't care if he's white, black. I would like him to be a female with big breasts. That would be nice.
Asian.
Huh?
Asian.
Asian would be fine.
Yeah.
Or maybe like that woman said, make Santa Claus a penguin. I mean, Santa Claus could be a penguin. But my favorite
Now
Santa,
you're mocking Santa Claus.
Huh?
How dare you?
Well, no, because I believe in one Santa Claus. I believe there is a Santa Claus.
The one true Santa Claus.
One true Santa Claus. And, of course, that's my favorite Santa Claus. Bad Santa. You have him there?
Yeah.
There we go. You love that movie, don't you?
It's a great movie.
I think any Santa who drinks and pees his pants and pukes on himself
and has a black elf
and has a black elf he's all right in my book. I think I'm going to go back and watch that movie for the holiday season. I think that's my Christmas Day movie.
I love it.
The Bad Santa. If you haven't seen it, you gotta see it.
Well, that and the other one that we like, the Christmas movie.
What's the other one we like?
The British one.
Oh, Love Actually?
Love Actually, right.
I love that picture.
Great movie.
Just a great movie. Those are the two pictures you should have. Forget about, A
Wonderful
Christmas
Life.
Story. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life sucks. I hate It's a Wonderful Life. It's the most treacly, syrupy, you know what I'm saying?
You're nothing but a scurvy spider.
Yeah, right. It's Capricorn, all right? But watch Bad Santa, Love Actually, and was there one other Santa Christmas picture I liked? No, not really.
That's enough.
Huh?
That's enough.
Yeah. Home Alone. Anyway, because he was home alone at Christmas, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think that was it, yeah. By the way, let's do the Sorkin thing. Okay, let's blow this out. This is kind of interesting. Aaron Sorkin wrote a series that I actually like called Studio 30, or Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. And it was about a TV show like Saturday Night Live, right?
Yeah, I thought it was a good show.
It lasted about one season, and that was it. All his shows are alike when it has to do with TV. I mean, Newsroom is a lot like this show in its component of the people in it and so on. But this was about doing a late night sketch show. And now watch this. Here are a bunch of guys on that show discussing a possible sketch. Watch this.
I tell you what else, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer got the names wrong. It's not Donner, it's Dunder. And Blixen, not Blitzen.
We three wise guys, the characters from Goodfellas on camels.
Hang on, it's not Dunder.
And he whistled and shouted and called them by name. On Dasher, on Dancer, on Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Dunder and Blixen. That was the Night Before Christmas. A white guy writing a song for Montgomery Ward screwed up the names.
And 'Twas the Night Before Christmas was written by Jesse Jackson?
We three wise guys.
Nowhere in the Bible does it say there were three of them. There was never a camel. They didn't travel from afar. It was 6 miles. And everything in the song is wrong.
Okay, so what's the name of the sketch?
We Three Wise Guys.
The Three Wise Guys. Watch Saturday Night Live last week.
Oft we have heard the story of the Magi, or the three wise men who traveled from the far east to visit the baby Jesus in Bethlehem. But there was a lesser fable about three lesser men who followed soon after. They weren't from the Far East, but rather from the East Coast, mainly Long Island and New Jersey. They were the Three Wise Guys.
Okay, right? Sorkin came up with the idea. They simply did it. There it is. Stallone, Goodman, De Niro. Which one do you think had to read from the teleprompter more, Albert?
De Niro.
Absolutely. De Niro can't do anything unless he's got a teleprompter. Okay, let's get back to pictures. The Capitol of the United States. Show the Capitol. Isn't that beautiful? Well, this part up here is rotting, okay? That's the rotunda, and it's rotting. You know something? This is something most people don't realize. What do you think the rotunda is made out of? Well, you saw 60 Minutes, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
But I'll say oatmeal.
Oatmeal?
Is it not oatmeal?
No, it's not oatmeal.
Oh.
But it looks like plaster, right?
Yes.
It's metal. It's iron. It's cast iron painted white.
That whole top?
Yeah.
Not just under the top?
Well, I mean, the whole, everything, the superstructure, everything.
I didn't know that.
The outside is iron, and the superstructure is iron. And guess what iron does?
Rusts.
It rusts. Plaster doesn't rust, it rusts. Anyway, it's gonna cost you how many, they say $60 million to fix it? Anyway. They're going to fix it. They're going to put little things on it and everything, platforms and so on, but they're going to light it up at night so it looks good. And that's what's happening at our Capitol.
So that's the next big waste of money that could be going to us?
Yeah. Katie Couric's moving. Did you hear about that, Albert?
Where's she going? Upper West Side?
Wait a minute. Here, I should go over to the other side here so you can see this wonderful graphic that I put together. You like that?
Very nice.
See, she's got a U-Haul, and it's...
She moving herself?
Huh?
Is she moving herself?
She's going to have to, because nobody really cares anymore, do they? Huh? She's actually, you know where she's going, I think? It's Amazon?
Yahoo.
Yahoo.
Yeah.
Close. She's going over to Yahoo. I guess she went, let's see, she went from being the anchor over at CBS...
No. Before that, she was at the Today Show.
Well, she was at the Today Show.
Yeah.
Then she became the anchor at CBS.
Right.
Then, what was the next thing? She got her own show.
Right.
Produced by Jeff Zucker, by the way, who then went over to CNN. And then that show hasn't done well because Steve Harvey is blowing her out of the water. Why, I don't know, because I'm getting really tired of Steve Harvey. And then, so now she's going over to Yahoo. What's she going to do? Is a TV show at Yahoo?
We'll have more viewers than she will.
But anyway, it's been officially announced the show that she's currently doing has been canceled. Kirsten Johnson, you know who Kirsten Johnson was? Remember Third Rock from the Sun?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think an attractive woman in her own really quirky way, you know?
And she's a good actress, too.
Yeah, she's a good actress, too. She has, what's the disease?
The one that George Costanza was scared of. Lupus.
Lupus.
Is it lupus?
She's got lupus. So, and one last thing, and I got to make this kind of quick because we have to bring the show to an end, although it looks like we're going to run over. Deep Throat. Now, why are we suddenly bringing up Deep Throat? AVN, the Adult Video News, wrote an op-ed, which, quite frankly, I think they're right about. You know, every year they have this film preservation that goes on, film preservation group from, I think, the Library of Congress. We mentioned it yesterday, all the films they were going to preserve, 25 of them. At no point have they done that with Deep Throat. Shouldn't they do that with Deep Throat? Shouldn't it be?
I think it'd be a nice
idea. No, because it really was, it changed things. You know, the definition of what they want to save are films that had sociological implications and sociological relevance. And to avoid Deep Throat, I think, is a big mistake. I think it should be preserved as part of the Library of Congress's preservation program. Would you not agree, Albert?
Certainly, it made a difference.
It certainly made a difference. Anyway, let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll finish this whole thing off, okay? Go back to the Deep Throat thing a second, Albert, because I just wanted to bring this up. I had to go get the information here. Here is the criterion to be in the Library of Congress National Film Registry. In other words, usually about 25 films a year are named to this, and then they are then preserved and made sure that the generations from here on in can see it. It says the film must be at least 10 years old. Deep Throat is over 10 years old. Be culturally historical. I would say it's culturally historical, isn't it? And aesthetically significant. And I think it meets all those criterion. So let's lobby for Deep Throat to be preserved by the National Film Registry. Hey, that's it for this week. That's it for this show. I want to finish off with something today. I never heard of you ever heard of parahawking? Albert?
Never in my life.
Well,
no.
you're going to see parahawking. It was done by some guy with a GoPro camera, and we all love them GoPro cameras, right?
Any relation to Stephen?
No,
Any
just
relation?
parahawking. Well, what you do is you fly on a parasail and you catch Stephen Hawking in his wheelchair. It's a great sport.
That may catch on.
Anyway, we'll be back with you on Monday. In the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her, okay? Bye.